You see it everywhere, right? Beer, wine, whiskey, it's a huge part of our culture. But what's really going on inside that bottle? So, let's get into it. We're going to break down the science, bust some major myths, and look at the dark reality of alcohol.
This is what Amit, who everyone thought was the perfect son, used to think. He'd look at drunkards and just not get it. How could people be so pathetic? Little did he know, his own life was about to take that exact same turn. So how does that happen? How does a guy like Amit, a model student who actually hated drinking, end up on the brink of losing everything? Well, it all started with just one drink. It starts at 18. He aces a test. And what do? You have a celebratory drink in college. Totally normal, right? But then by 19, that one drink becomes a weekend thing. He's the guy who can hold his liquor, and his friends are actually praising him for it. At 20, he goes through a really tough breakup. And that's when it shifts. He starts drinking every single day, just to kind of numb the sadness. And then at 25, it all comes to a head. All that pent-up stuff explodes in this violent outburst. He smashes the TV, and his wife is just terrified. The perfect son was gone. So what's the common thread in this whole downward spiral? It's one single chemical: ethanol. You and I just call it alcohol. And what is this stuff, really? It's actually a lot more natural and way more powerful than most of us realize. And get this, alcohol isn't some fancy thing we invented in a lab. Nope. Scientists have this theory called the drunken monkey hypothesis, and it basically says our ancient primate ancestors were getting a buzz millions of years ago from eating overripe fermented fruit that had fallen off trees. So our craving for it, it might actually be hardwired into our DNA. And the process for how it's made is, well, it's incredibly simple. You've got sugar, say from fruit or grains. Then you've got yeast. It's this tiny little fungus, and it just eats the sugar. As it eats, it basically puts out two things: carbon dioxide and, you guessed it, ethanol, alcohol. That's it. That's the whole process of fermentation. And it happens in nature all the time. Okay, but here's where things get really interesting. Nature has this kind of built-in safety switch. See, once the alcohol content gets to about 18%, it actually kills the yeast, so fermentation just stops. That's the natural limit. But then, we humans got involved. We invented distillation. It's this process of heating and cooling that lets us concentrate the alcohol way, way beyond what nature intended. And that's how we get the hard stuff, like whiskey and vodka. Okay, so now that we know what alcohol is, let's talk about what it does. What was actually happening inside Amit's brain every single time he took a drink? Why did it feel so good in the moment? And what was the real price he was paying? So think of your brain like a car with two pedals. You've got GABA, which is the brake pedal. It slows everything down, calms you. Then you have glutamine, and that's the gas pedal. It keeps you alert and sharp. What does alcohol do? It's like it puts one foot on the brake and pushes it harder while taking the other foot off the gas. That's why you feel relaxed, but it's also why your thinking gets fuzzy, your speech slurs, and your judgment goes right out the window. But that's not all. At the same time, alcohol opens the floodgates for dopamine, the ultimate pleasure chemical. That's what gave Amit that feeling he was chasing, that feeling of sukoon, which is this deep, deep sense of peace. It's an instant, powerful reward. And honestly, that chemical rush, that's the very core of why alcohol is so insanely addictive. So, that short-term peace comes with a huge long-term price tag. We're talking about serious physical damage. Heavy drinking literally shrinks your brain, especially the parts that handle decision-making and memory. That explains the blackouts and the anger issues Amit was having. And then there's your liver. It's your body's main filter, and alcohol just destroys it one stage at a time until you hit cirrhosis, which is irreversible. And don't think that once you sober up, it's gone. Sure, it's out of your blood in maybe half a day, but its traces, they can be detected in a strand of your hair for up to 90 days. It really sticks around. All right, we've all heard them, right? The little stories we tell ourselves, the justifications for having a drink. So let's just cut through the noise and tackle 4 of the most common and, frankly, most dangerous myths about drinking. Okay, let's start with a big one. Myth number 1. Red wine is good for your heart. We've all seen the headlines. It's supposed to be this healthy, sophisticated choice. Yeah, that's a myth. Look, the tiny, tiny amount of antioxidants you get from the grapes in wine is nothing. You could just eat a handful of grapes and get way more benefit. The real story is that any potential plus is completely canceled out by the ethanol, which, by the way, is a known carcinogen. It causes cancer. So, no, it's not a health drink.
All right, myth number 2. What if you just stick to beer and wine? They're safer than the hard stuff like whiskey, right?
Nope. Another myth. Here's the thing, your liver can't tell the difference. To your body, alcohol is alcohol. A standard beer, a glass of wine, and a shot of liquor, they all have roughly the same amount of pure ethanol. Your liver processes it exactly the same no matter what it's mixed with.
Okay, next up. That classic movie scene, right? It's freezing cold and the hero takes a big swig from a flask to warm up. We've all heard that alcohol warms you up. This one is not just a myth. It's actually incredibly dangerous. Alcohol widens the blood vessels near your skin, which rushes warm blood to the surface, so you feel warmer. But what's really happening? You're losing your core body heat much, much faster. It's a trick, a deadly illusion that actually increases your risk of hypothermia. And that brings us to the biggest myth of them all, the idea that a safe amount of alcohol exists. The World Health Organization is crystal clear on this. Their official stance is that there is no safe amount of alcohol that doesn't affect your health, period. Every single drink carries a risk. So, with all that in mind, let's go back to Amit's story. He's hit absolute rock bottom. He's hungover, his life is a mess, and he's watching the two most important people in his life, his mom and his wife, pack their bags to leave him for good. He begs them, just one more chance. And in that moment of pure desperation, his family makes one last call, a call to Alcoholics Anonymous, or AA. It's this global group that has a really different take on it. They don't see alcoholism as a weakness or a moral failure. They treat it as what it is, a disease. And look, the path to recovery was anything but easy. The withdrawal was physically agonizing, a real battle. But he held on to that promise he made to his family. He stuck with it. Fast forward 10 years. Today, Amit is a successful entrepreneur. He still goes to his AA meetings because he knows this is a lifelong fight. But his story is proof. It shows that even from the darkest places, recovery is absolutely possible. Think about it. Amit's whole story, it started with just one drink, one celebration. It almost ended in total tragedy, but he managed to rewrite his ending. Every time someone has a drink, it's the start of a story. So the real question isn't about that one drink. It's what kind of story will yours be?